right.
And welcome those who have already entered and those who arrived. I have a lot to present, so I'm just gonna get started. It'll take a bit. Um, and short drafted by myself is regardless what the screen says. I've been into innovation management for some 20 years now and working with the international standards for innovation management or systematic innovation management for since 2014, so it's 10 years. So I've been co-authoring the 56002 standard and currently the 56001 standard and the European standards. And before that, I was a researcher and a consultant and an innovation manager. So with that in my back pocket, I've also for 20 years been working as a digital strategist and IT strategist, and both as a consultant as an employee, and researching practically in IT management at universities and research institutes. So that combined has pretty much led me to where I am today, integrating innovation into technology, so to speak. So, and since IT and digital is my core area, this is, sort of a logical approach for me with my background and interest to walk into. So with me today, some being present, I will have Rick Fernandez on the panel after my presentation. I'll go through the agenda in my next slide. Um, these guys will help me sort of bring some extra views on the topic. Rick is a colleague with mine in the International ISO committee and also co-founder of Innovation Management System Professionals. We have Jonas, who's here, who's head of customer success at Red Hat. From the open innovation and open source perspective, and David is with us as well, who's an innovation expert, former colleague of mine from KPMG, who's also an innovation expert in practice. So we're going to have a little dialogue at the end of the session. And the agenda for today is first, I'm going to give an introduction to what is the content of the book, but it's also standalone. So if you're just interested in understanding how to work with it, you'll gain from it. Otherwise, the book will be a reference point to understand how you can work with this. And what I'll go through is first a short introduction of the importance of digital transformation, which I think is kind of obvious to everyone present. But then I go into, that's just a quick introduction, then I go into the TMM net model, which is sort of a bit of the core of the book for how to sort of forecast and predict the applicants of certain emerging technologies. And then I give a swift overview of emerging digital technologies as presented in the book as well. So there's 43 of them presenting, and they're very well structured and they're connected to the TMM net model. And you'll understand that in a short while. Then we'll go into a panel discussion about the necessity of understanding and implementing emerging technologies, and then there will be an interactive Q&A. So whatever questions arise from anyone present here, just jot them down and save them for later, and we'll bring them up because I'm happy to have a dialogue with everyone present to get your feedback and your whatever reflections you have on the topic today. All right. Getting into it, let's start shortly with, and I'm going to connect. We had a short discussion before everyone entered. What the importance is today, and it's, technical advancements is happen pretty rapidly today, and what we have seen naturally is that innovation is very much driven by digital technology today. And we have Gen AI being one of the core drivers at the moment, but that in isolation does not do the entire trick. So have to understand how that can be incorporated and utilized, and that influences naturally customer expectations and employee expectations because once innovation is happening, if someone else embraces it and you don't, the expectations will come to you. So if not on top of things, you will be a laggard. And that leads to competitive pressure. So if you're not on the ball, you'll have to deal with the consequences, especially since there's so much risk capital out there today that no incumbent is actually sitting on a secure throne any day. And we've seen that happen so many times. A good startup with decent funding and well advisory can actually disrupt pretty much any industry. So everyone has to be, on top of their game to ensure that there's a future um, to begin with. Um, So what we're seeing is, and you're well aware of this, is how digital technologies are enabling widely new business models through different ways of interacting with everything mainly. And we'll go through the technologies in a while to more or less explain why. Because it enhances operational efficiency a lot. We have automation, we have AI. Recently read that Ernst Young is letting 15% of the management consultants go because they're being replaced by AI as of today. So it's already becoming very apparent that these technologies needs to be embraced, and there needs to be a digital innovation strategy to prepare for this. Otherwise, you'll be run over. So the whole thing is about preparing for that change, and this is the concept that we're dealing with is actually approaching this in a systematic way. So the book is intended to help navigate, you should say, the future of business, because transformative digital technologies is taking over a lot. And to ensure that that game is played properly, the concept in the book is sort of a systematic approach to managing that, and to, as it says, bridge the gap from not clearly knowing which technology to approach, when and how, and to get that into a practical application in your business or even personally, of course. How will AI assistants support my daily, work, and how I manage my kids and so on? Even that is something that's going to change over time. So it's not only something that happens in a business context, which we naturally need to be aware of. Just to give you a little context, um, these are cases where I've sent in the TMM model into an AI and asked for future scenarios using the technologies in the book to provide how, assuming these technologies reach the maturity level expected using the TMM model, which I will introduce in a while, these are the results. One is commuting to work in 2040 means you'll be driving an AI-managed autonomous transport system or a car, as we can say it, using V2X communication, which is vehicle to everything communication, to ensure that there are no accidents, where other cars are, where congestions are, and so on. So that's an integration of V2X with AI and IoT technically. While you're in the car driving, you can have your meetings, you have your smart personal assistant managing the day for you. You can have meetings with using VR or smart goggles, smart glasses, whatever you use to do that, which is implemented in the car since you don't need driving. That entire commute is being managed more efficiently. Grocery shopping, AI-driven, smart refrigerators alongside your nutrition plan, which are in the apps, are coordinated practically. So food will be delivered on demand using drones and will, arrive according to your health situation, to what you need when you need it, and the finance and money is automatically drawn from your account most likely, all managed by your personal finance situation. So, finance is going to be managed by your personal AI agent that is well aware of what your personal situation looks like, your savings, your goals and targets for your personal economy. You use safe login functions and identification system like biometrics, and it'll be stored in blockchain so everything is transparent and traceable. And AI uses your cryptocurrency to ensure that your finances are well managed. And those three are just simple examples of the future we were coming towards. And if that is coming through, how well prepared are we for these situations? And these were more personal, perhaps, than workforce related. But yet, if you're delivering to clients, how can we ensure that you are prepared for being there in just 5, 6 years? That means the transformation need to start practically now to ensure that we will be there when we get there, so we don't have to be reactive and rather be proactive in our innovation efforts. So that will change a lot. That means from a business point of view, we have to understand the development of technologies. We have to understand the maturity level and how they will grow over time and when they're expecting to reach certain levels, so that we can understand the impact and see how could that be integrated with our business strategy and thus with our digital transformation strategy. Because both strategy and innovation are long-term efforts for understanding long-term transitions. So we need to have that plan, even though it will be continuous. No strategy is a one-time off. It's something that is on a regular basis. So by having a method to structure this and understanding the impact and seeing what the future scenarios will be, that is a way of making sure that we don't just take wild shots with innovation and with emerging technologies for innovation, basically. So apart from having to understand the change over time so that we can approach it in a timely manner, we also have to understand, and this is a general issue, that technologies don't work in isolation. Currently, everyone is staring blindly at Gen AI as the single solution to everything. But as edge AI is evolving along with edge computing and so on, that things are going to change. So we have to understand how technologies can work for synergetic innovation, rather, and to see how when each of these technologies are maturing and when and how these can be interacted and intertwined to create more value than just a single one in isolation. And this is also one of the things, because timingly, if you're too early, that will be a problem. But if you're too late, you lose the competitive advantage. So we have to both understand how they work in tandem, when they should be interconnected, and at what time. And that is perfect for any digital transformation strategy to be aware of this. And this is where the method in the book comes in to try to help support that. That's the TMNet model, which is sort of the foundation of the book, which is then being applied to various technologies, which I will mention shortly. I will go through them. TMNet stands for Technology Maturity Model for New and Emerging Technologies. It doesn't say digital, and that's mostly because the acronym would be hard to pronounce. With TMNet, but it mainly refers to, it's applicable to other types of technologies as well, but my focus is on digital technologies. So it's being developed using standards and best practices in general and applied for this specific context, integrating innovation management with technology development practically. So he uses the capability maturity model for various levels as a foundation, which is widely used, and sort of integrates sort of like the Gartner hype cycle, which you may have heard of, technology readiness levels, sort of like 8 or 9 for the maturity of technology in general, and is very applicable to what is called the Rogers adoption curve, which is practically also the S curve for products. And I will refer to that when I go through the TMNet model so that you'll understand how it compares to an S curve. Because Rogers adoption curve is where innovators, early adopters, and early maturity come in, and that's the focus of the TMNet model. Where laggards come in and when the S curve is sort of declining is not within this context, because it's mainly looking at the initial slope of the S curve. So this is what it looks like. It's 6 stages in the TMNet timeline. And it goes from the first initiation, inception of a technology, up until when it's well, it kind of reaches the highest slope of the S curve, you could say. So in fact, these stages sort of resonate with S curve, you could say. And once you reach full market maturity or full mainstream adoption, this is where you are sort of you fill up the all of the early majority as well, you would say. And this is important for us to understand how it relates to radical innovation and incremental innovation and so on. And I'll go through that as well, not as quickly as I can, but as thoroughly as I can without taking too much time. I'll go through the steps briefly, just you'll get the presentation afterwards. First step is about research and conceptualization, which is the first initiation and inception of any technology, where it's practically being researched, explored, trying to see whether it's workable or not. It's tested for its plausibility and its potential in practice. So this is where the first inception takes place, just to see if there's something that can go further or not. And there's a timeline for each, and the expectancy for research and conceptualization is approximately 1 to 3 years to count, which is relevant for us to be able to do predictions of technology's growth and maturity. And I'll get back to that a little later on. Second stage is proof of concept and demonstration, where we take the initial idea or the initial research to something that is more feasible and tangible and try it out. So we develop prototypes, we do first technical testing, we do user testing and so on, and see if we can run a pilot project to see, is the first idea practically actually something that could work in a marketplace? It is something that will fill the value that is expected. Then the third stage is where it gets introduced to the market. It gets developed and it gets to the market. So we're kind of leaving the first initial development phase where it's sort of the idea management, and it goes into being introduced to the market. And this is where the TMF timeline kind of changes a bit, because the first two stages are for development, and I would go slightly over into market adoption. And this first market introduction thing is more about getting it into the market primarily. Whereas stage 4 is where it's being introduced to early adopters. So in stage 3, we may hit some of the innovators, so to speak, from Rogers' adoption curve point of view. And in stage 4, we get into the early adopters, the initiators, not the high-risk people, but still relatively risk-aware. And this builds sort of the first core market to ensure that we can make it grow from here. So in practice, we're just at the initiation of the S-curve. Stage 5 means we're getting into growth. And this is where we get into, in what Rogers' adoption curve is called early majority, the initial phases of early majority. This takes approximately 3 to 5 years for any technology to go through. And this is where it scales up, it becomes fruitable. It's not that much of an investment. It may, from an investment point of view, get into sort of a break-even stage, and it reach some sort of broader market penetration as well. And this is where we're getting into, it's still innovative, but it's not brand new. So it's not high risk, it's getting into medium risk, so to speak. And this stage 6, it goes into sort of the overhill of the curve. And it's a 3 to 5 year timeline for this, where it goes into early mainstream adoption. So it's not for laggards, it's still for early majority, but the later half of the early majority is coming in. So it's becoming a bit of a standard in the market. People are really understanding that, okay, this is something that has changed the market now. It's becoming more or less something that is most people are starting to use. So how to use this? Well, if we can start pinpointing various technologies on this timeline, we can start preparing for the time of adopting various technologies. And if we're not the inventors ourselves, it's more about adopting these technologies, right? So we have to understand what stage they are and then systematically see how we can integrate them into our digital transformation strategy at a timely occasion. So the systematic approach proposed in the model helps provide the strategic timing so they can be integrated with digital transformation and supporting the innovation strategy. If we do this correctly, I'd say that the digital transformation strategy and the innovation strategy is overlapping at 80 to 90%. You probably won't need two separate strategies. You just need one incorporated one. So what the TMM forecasting looks like, because what we did initially is pinpoint technologies of where are they today. But the second part of the TMM net model is the TMM net forecasting, where we use a methodology to predict where they'll be in a certain time frame, how they evolve across the timeline, which of course is super relevant for the timeliness of implementation of these technologies. So if you compare them to the three horizons, which you should be aware of, first horizon, or actually third horizon, if you look at it from that angle, are the first two stages in the TMM netline. And when you go into second horizon, it's recently been launched to market, and the innovators and some of the early adopters have started looking at it. And horizon 3, which is what we call incremental innovation, is where it's reached some sort of early market maturity in a way. And this is where we have to understand, how do they evolve over time? How do we build our innovation portfolio based on this so we can combine low risk and high risk emerging technologies in a timely manner for as part of our investment strategy as well. So using the predictions or the forecasting part of it, we use a bunch of indicators to understand this. And I have applied this already, which was fairly cumbersome, to all the 43 technologies mentioned in the book. So what we look at all of these indicators, we look at how have similar technologies evolved over time. Where is this technology on the S-curve? So we can compare it with similar technologies and their evolution. We look at industry dynamics, because it's going to be different in, say, medical than it's going to be in IT, in the IT sector and so on. And manufacturing may be slower than certain other industries. And how it's been regulated, because that will influence the speed of implementation if we have to go certain steps for, as I mentioned with medical, for instance. And what does the market look like within that, for the target of that specific technology, for instance? So will there be a lot of innovators and early adopters within that market, or is that a slow market, or combined with regulations that's going to affect that? And what are the investment levels for that kind of technology, and how is it moving along? And how are pilot programs and deployments moving along as well? Because if we see that they are being very successful in their context, that's definitely a contribution to the evolution of that technology, of course. And then getting some sort of like Delphi method to get expert opinions on what do the experts say about the evolution of and the likeliness of this. And if you merge these together, in fact, if you take the data, run it through AI to get the prediction together with the TMNet model, it's pretty fast to get a prediction of how certain technology will evolve over time. You'll get that served in the book, though. So it looks something like this. This is one example. All 43 technologies are covered like this in the book. But here's how vehicle-to-everything communications are expected to look. In 2024, it was at stage 4.1. So recently launched to market practically. and well resonated with innovators and early adopters. So it's predicted using the indicators mentioned that in 2028 it will reach about 5.1, 5.2. In 2032 we will come to a certain level, the end of sort of the slope, and it will be expected to reach early market adoption around 2035. So we have another 10 years before it will be mature. Meaning we should probably start moving into that area around 2026, 2027, if we want to be at an early stage. And that gives us something tangible to put it into, depending on how the market develops. So looking at all of these technologies being covered in the book, that's why it's such a brick, because it covers all of them very thoroughly. And I go through that. The book covers, they divided them into four separate domains. One of them is connectivity and networking, which is about how devices and people are getting connected through technology. And there are 10 various technologies being covered in that section. We go through human computer sensing and interaction, which is how humans and computer system and data interact in both ways, actually. So we call that human-computer interaction practically, and I'll go through this briefly just after this. We have 10 technologies mentioned in sensing and interaction. We have computer paradigms, which is about how and where data is being processed. Is it in the edge? Is it in the cloud? Is it quantum computing? How is data being processed locally, and and where, in what way? And there are 10 technologies covered for computer paradigms. And then we have intelligence system, which is actually how systems work. And in practice, not how data is processed, but how algorithms work with data to make our system smarter. So in the end of the day, it's about autonomous decision making, practically how systems can improve human behavior and replace humans in many ways. And we have 12 technologies covered in that section as well. So the first thing about the connectivity networking is about how we connect and how we communicate and how we transmit data practically, so that devices and systems can interact. And the technologies covered are all of these. I'm not going to go through them one by one. That's what the book is for. But it's all from 5G and 5G networks to advanced Wi-Fi, how we set up, as I mentioned, V2X communications, how satellite internet for IoT will work, how Li-Fi will work when we can start transmitting over light, and how 6G, when we will start approaching that, and what the maturity level is, and when that can be expected to be sort of a game changer for us. And at the end of the day, when quantum internet, which will mean way higher security and speeds than we have today, when that will come into play. That will take a few years, but all that is mentioned, as I said in the book. Sensing and interaction refers to, as I mentioned, how systems interact, how devices interact, and in practice, how we interact with them or replace the interaction at some points. Practically says how the physical digital works interact, you could say. And technologies mentioned are all these. Some of these we are very comfortable with even today, like RFID and NFC we use every day for mobile payments and so on. Wearable technologies we use for fitness tracking and so on, and computer vision for sort of like face recognition in these things. And voice recognition NLP, we're getting there. It's sort of early still, and so on. And especially when we get into smart sensors, smart beacons, and biosensors, it's starting to become very interesting. And brain-computer interfaces, what Neuralink is currently being the leader in, is something that is going to be extremely interesting when we get there. And if you've read Ray Kurzweil's book on, I forgot the name of it, where it says we'll be fully integrated with AI, all of us, through brain-computer interfaces in around 10 years. So we'll have just one integrated brain, all of us, all have access to the same. If that works, that'll be really interesting. But the maturity of that is going to take some time, as we can see in the book. And the computer paradigms, as I mentioned, is how and where data is processed. So moves away from centralized processing on usually on servers and before that on local computers to decentralized distribution, but also how data is processed physically, so to speak. I mean, edge computing is more of how, where it is being computed. Most of it is moving out into the web in various ways, like cloud native, serverless, and fog computing. While as quantum computing and neuromorphic computing and photonic computing is more about how we process data on our devices and how we can increase speed, sort of Moore's law on steroids in a way where data can be processed in ways that we've never seen before, and where data processing has been an issue, as in mining crypto, for instance, is going to be way easier when we can, for instance, use synthetic biology for computing, which replicates how the body works in practice. So these are covered in computer paradigms, including blockchain and DLT technologies and so on. And then we have intelligence systems, which is something that is one of the core game changers, but is not going to work without the others. So it's the integration of all of these dimensions that actually make the difference. And these are about how machines actually learn, adapt, and decide for themselves and replicate pretty much how our intelligence works, and sometimes improve it even. So it's about intelligence-driven technologies and how they can become smarter. And there's 12 technologies covered there. Most of them are AI related in various ways. So it's both the traditional AI and machine learning, but also how RPA and autonomy works. But then at digital twins, you have edge AI, which is really important for the next generation of AI, from my point of view. And then you have those related to that. Generative design is practically how design can be managed with the support of AI. And reinforcement learning and swarm intelligence are also new ways for AI to improve in different smart ways, but that is still in its inception. And the programmable matter is how we can actually make materia react to certain pre-programmed results, so it can be adjusted either by computing or by itself. And that's just that's in stage one, I could mention. So for every technology mentioned, all of them, the book will present all of this. In fact, it'll give an overview of the technological area. It'll explain why it's important today. It'll give a history and evolution of the technology, how it has evolved up until today. And it'll present the technical foundations, components, and architecture of how it works, basically. Not on a super technical level. The book is mainly directed to business developers, innovators, innovation managers, strategists, and so on. And then it goes into how it relates to other closely related technologies and key technologies, how they can be combined to give perspective, and then also how it's currently being used in various industries, and also examples of leading implementations for inspiration and to get a grasp of what the state of art is today. We'll go through business opportunities with these, but also challenges for it. So you get both the pros and the cons served, and also the strategic considerations of implementing these technologies. What would you need to think of? How would you approach it practically? Should you go into collaborating with research institutes? Should you try some own development and so on? So very practical advice in there. And then we'll go into the TMNet maturity state. Where is it now? What's the current 2024 maturity level? And then it goes into predicted milestones for the expected forecasts for that technology and is on the TMNet timeline. And then we look at emerging trends for that technology, what do we see is coming up, and it'll also end off with some long-term implications for how will this technology, well, practically change context, industries, and environments. And this is what it will look like overall. All of these technologies plotted on the timeline. This is just the current state of 2024 going into 2025. And then for each technology, we can track, of course, how it grows over time until it reaches 6.1, which would be where it's called incremental innovation in practice. So this is highly relevant, and as you can see, you have all the timelines and you have the stages, and within the book is pinpointed by each step in each stage, so you can see at what year it's expected to come to that level. Fairly interesting. So before rounding off and inviting the panel, just 2 words about the book. This is the structure of the book, if you're interested. First, some about digital transformation and how that works. And then in chapter 2, we go through the TMM net technology. It's very hands-on with even references to sort of material you can use to apply it yourself. So it goes through both the timeline model and the forecasting model within that chapter. Then we go into the technologies. First, an overview that is easily used as a reference. So if you just want to, what the hell was quantum internet? And then you can go into just get a brief summary there. And then throughout the rest of the chapters, we go through every technology one by one, so that you can either read through them or go back to them, find its position on the timeline, use it the way you feel relevant depending on what you need to do at the moment in your digital transformation efforts. And so there's various ways of reading. Either you read it right through, or you read it selectively, saying, okay, perhaps I should start looking at the TMM net model to understand that. And then, well, for us currently, we need to look at certain technologies. I'll just read through those chapters, and then I can use it as a reference guide and get back to whenever there are new technologies that are relevant for me and so on. So the book is 800 plus pages, but like I said, it's not required as a overnight read just to start from 1 and then, well, actually it starts at 3. There's a formatting mistake. All the way through, rather use it as applicable to your context. And it just launched at Amazon today, a few hours ago. So it's available as of today. So this is the formal release, you could say, of it. So well, you'll find it on Amazon. It will be available. It takes another week or so to reach all local bookstores globally and so on. So from a Swedish point, it will be available on Adlibris and Bocus and so on and those things. But if you want to get it to your Kindle, you can have it by today in practice. Having said that, I'd be happy to get some feedback or some inspiration, I should say, from the panel I've invited today. So I don't know, Rick, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Happy to see that you're here, Rick. I'd like to ask you some, like a question or two. What would you say? Having listened to me, rambling on for a bit, how important would you say it is for innovation to grasp and comprehend future technologies in general? What's your take on this?
Well, I think that first of all, thank you very much for inviting me, Hakan, and with this very good panel with David and Jonas here with us also. Um, as we've been working on the standard development for innovation management. Recently, in September, that was issued out, and the process that you're describing from the TMN net maturity model is very similar to the process that's being proposed as part of Clause 8 in that standard. But even before you get into the development of any of this, you have to do a technology inventory. Why do you do that? Well, not because all innovation is equal to technology, but certainly if you're going to be getting into innovation, you need to understand where you are today. Where is your organization relative to others competitively? Where is it that you could find a market niche that hasn't been filled? And then you look at existing technologies or developing technologies that you could potentially use to help you along the way. It shouldn't be the other way around. It shouldn't be like the typical, hammer looking for the nail, right? It's the nail looking for the hammer. And I think that once you do that, then you can use technologies that do exist or are being developed to tag on to that to see how you could then um, fuse these technologies along with uh, what it is that you're developing so that it gets you there further, faster, cheaper, and so forth. So it's important to look at that. And maybe I'm running off here a little bit too much, but the other two topics that I think you need to bring up, which I know you're very familiar with, is the topic of how do you manage that innovation portfolio, considering the technologies that are out there, and lastly, how do you build an ecosystem around your organization so that ecosystem sustainably continuously brings you those new technologies that are applicable to you.
Right. Yeah, completely agree. Those are complementary activities to ensure that this, I mean, we're saying technology shouldn't be isolated, but also management methods should not be isolated either. So this is just one component in a major context, which leads me to ask you, so how would this fit into an innovation management system using like the TMMN netting and emerging technologies per se? What do you say?
You're asking me again? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I see. I see this book being throughout the whole process, right? I think at the beginning, when you're looking for opportunities to work on, or opportunity areas or arenas, let's call them, because
Yeah.
most recently, uh, it was I believe McKinsey that came up with the new competitive arenas that we're going to be in, right? And what technologies are associated with each one, and they sort of relate to the ones that you just mentioned there. But it's hard to write a book in a technology field these days because by the time that you publish it, they have a five new technologies that you didn't even know about, right? So um, the key is to keep on top of all this, and if you create the correct ecosystem of the people that have the expertise in the different areas that you deal with, okay, or that you want to deal with in the future, that they can bring this on. That could be suppliers, that could be consultants, that could be experts, that could be universities, R&D, different people. But it has to be upfront so that then you could take advantage of it. Okay.
Right. Yeah, brilliant. And thanks, Rick. And to add to that, I should say that the TMM net model works regardless of technology. And those mentioned in the book are sort of a blueprint for now. And the intention with the book is also have a biannual release, so that this is the 2025 version, which will be re-released in 2027. So with an updated portion of how technology, but still, there's 2 years
That's
between.
important. That's
Things will
important.
happen. So it's just to support. It's not to replace in any way. Thanks, Rick. Jonas. What do you say? You with Red Hat and been so for many years. What are your personal experience with dealing with emerging technologies? Do you see any hurdles? What are the biggest issues people face?
Well, yes, I do, and I meet customers on a regular basis, decision makers, and the problem they have is that they are not on top of, like, they're very far from the emerging technologies.
Yeah,
Top of mind is like, how can I make my company more competitive?
right.
And most of them have struggled since the pandemic. Like, how do we free up resources to spend so we can spend it on innovation? How do we kind of do that? So most of them are far from like the edge AI thing. They want to go there, but they have to start somewhere. So I usually connect with them with like, how do you free up those resources? How do you build up that capability of being more innovative in your space? And then how do you turn that into something useful? And there's like, if there was more time, I could give you so many stories where I have sat down with C-level people in banks, insurance companies, kind of large manufacturing, and then they're sort of stuck in their heads because they're thinking about the technologies they know about,
Right.
not necessarily what they already is available to them.
Right.
And not until you kind of get them to kind of wind down a little bit and then have a focused discussion, you can then have that discussion. Like I met with C-level people, we talked about challenges, and then they would talk about, oh, we have a problem. One of the examples would be sat down with a bank some time ago. We talked about modernization, we talked about virtualization, like saving time. And then one of the things that kept him awake at night was, how do I keep my developers kind of in our company? Because everyone wants to work with emerging technology, the latest and greatest stuff. And it's
Right.
like, we just struggle with that. Turns out they already have something that could help them. He just didn't know about it. That is just exactly what this book is addressing. Like, if we could help more people to understand that,
Right.
especially the decision makers, and they don't need to know every nitty-gritty detail, but they have to kind of get that understanding. What type of technology is this, and how can it be applied, and how can it help us to take the next step? Because
Right.
in their minds, it's like, what's the next step? They want to, not the number 10, but like, how do we get on? How do we move on? And so I'm just going to acknowledge this is an important area, and everyone needs to kind of step up a little bit. The question is, how would you do that?
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, that needs a wider approach than just what mentioned in the book, because that just be one component. But thanks for that. So what you're saying is they're fairly ready to adopt the innovation, but they don't really know how to, and they can't connect that to technological maturity either, right?
No, they don't. So they hear about all these things. They know the words. They are, as we say, buzzword compliant, have no clue what it means, and
Right.
not even if it's like, oh, could we use that? Yes, you can. And guess what? You already pay for it. You already have it. So absolutely, super important area for everyone in this business.
Correct. All right, great, Jonas. But yeah, and that's really live. I mean, since you see people all the time and see that firsthand, it's really nice to hear your view on it. David, what would you say? Like emerging technologies, how do they drive innovation today? What would you said would be key for those leaders to stay ahead of understanding how to implement emerging technologies today?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first off, thanks for including me in the panel and congrats on the book. And I think that you produced something really quite, magisterial here. Um, so more specifically, and I was interested to hear what Jonas talked about working with banks. I also work with banks and insurance companies primarily around innovation. And for me, emerging technologies is something that bank CEOs and executives don't think enough about. And I always think about there's a quote that's attributed to Bill Gates, which says we often overestimate the impact of a technology in the early years and underestimate its impact over like 20 years. And what
Yeah,
you're talking about is emerging technologies, is identifying that up front. For me, what I note is that emerging technologies often spark other innovations where they get combined. So, in other words, it's not always about just the technology itself, but then the application of that technology combined with something else. So, I think that it's important for leaders of large organizations to understand what emerging technologies are out there and what combinations of those technologies or existing technologies could impact their business model. That's really why they would care. You know, the difference between academic interest and profit or loss or survival of your organization in a market is understanding that, and you call it synergistic innovation.
right.
think that that's right. And I think that, but the challenge we have is that executives, there's often a mismatch between of time horizons. The executive time horizon linked on their tenure is typically sort of 3 to 5 years, if that. But
Mm.
some of these technologies, as you've shown, and I really love the use of Roger's diffusion of innovation principles.
Right.
Literally, that's what this is about.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, it's important because if they don't, they have higher risk. But that we need to find a way of rapidly identifying which of these technologies are more likely to impact their business model during their time horizon
Right.
versus later on.
Right. Yeah. So what you're saying is they want to be on top of things, but they don't know exactly how to. So what kind of advice would you give for those who would like to implement emerging technologies and have those sort of incorporated into their innovation strategies? What would you say? What would be the way to go forward?
Look, I mean, I think, there's an ideal way, and then there's kind of what's doable sort of way. So the ideal way would be to, have a team that is, looking at emerging technologies and producing insights and keeping track of the S curves. But frankly, only the very largest organizations can do that and track things from, patent applications and that sort of thing. I think that there are many large organizations or medium-sized ones who need to do this. And then what they could do this is by making use of outside experts, reaching out to groups. And what I see in banking and many other industries is, there's a reaching out to kind of startup networks and trying to understand what they're doing. But that is actually a pretty high risk approach if you don't have clarity on what your corporate strategy is. Um, because
Yeah.
when you're and I've seen this for over 10 years, large banks having people sent to Silicon Valley whose job is to run a listening post and they need to go out and meet people. If that's what you tell them to do, that's what they'll do. But so what you need is to have some clarity on sort of what is your long run strategy, and then how does that translate to an innovation strategy, and then where do emerging technologies impact that?
Yes.
So I guess you just need clarity of thinking on it, and you need to find a lower cost, lightweight operating model to, say, okay, so given that, which technologies do we want, and sort of reach out and bring in experts on an as needed or a regular basis so that you can kind of track where the scenarios are going. I like your scenarios, by the way. They do spark off a lot of thought.
Thank you. Yeah, in that case, I have some AI support though, so I wanted to have it solidated. And thanks for that, because yeah, what you're saying is that the why should come first, and the what and the how should come afterwards, practically. And I couldn't agree more, because even though I'm focusing on emerging technologies here, it's not for the sake of emerging technologies, it's for the sake of understanding how those could complement those whys later on, really. So yeah, you really highlighted that in a very good way. Thanks, David. Rick.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that we we need to step back a little bit, right? And not just make and this is I think you say it well in the book that you can't just think about technology for the sake of technology, okay?
Right.
And not every innovation is a technological innovation. So first look at your existing processes, your internals, right? What are you doing internally? Um, and then see how you can modify how to optimize your existing processes to take advantage of all of these technologies, but modify the technologies first. I mean, I'm sorry, the processes first.
Right.
Then once you know what the processes are that you want to transform to, right? Then that's when you should uh, go out and do your technology inventory,
Right.
okay? And then everything follows as you state in the book.
Right. Yeah, thanks. That's a good compliment to understand. First, well, when you start to see, but having the knowledge of what the technologies can accomplish is good to have in the back of your head when you get into trying to understand what to do. So it's actually it's a back and forth, but and your way of putting it is actually excellent, Rick. Thanks. Marco.
Hello there. Thank you very much for letting me in. I have a lot of questions. I think I have 4 or 5 questions here. So, first question is, I don't know if you are familiar with the KTH innovation readiness level. And my question was about that one and how well it does correspond to the TMM net model. And are you familiar with the KTH innovation readiness level? Because I saw some similarities with your TMM net model.
No, I'll be happy to look into it though. I have done research on various innovation readiness models for many years, and also be part of bringing up the standards for innovation readiness, what we call innovation management assessments. That particular one I'm not familiar with. Any of the others, are you aware of that? No. All
Okay,
right. So
I put
look into it. I'll be happy to connect.
into the chat link to the KTH innovation. So,
Let me make a point. I think that we should be more open to the different management systems that are out there and not just look at uh, innovation management or quality management, but rather start thinking about an integrated management system. Okay, and that will help us take advantage of digital transformation, new technologies coming in, and so forth. And one of the ones that I think is one of the best and has been the best for years because they keep up, to all the new management trends, is the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award, which the European Quality Award follows a similar pattern. So I know that's not quite innovation, but you know what? They are on top of the innovation methodologies, and I think we should start thinking about bringing in some of those concepts into how we manage in an integrated fashion.
Right.
okay, thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
I had some more
Next question.
questions. Can I ask another question?
Sure, shoot.
And it was to Håkan. What is your findings? What is your findings? What is the biggest shift for mankind the coming 15, 20 years? And did any of your findings when you did this research surprise you?
None has been surprising. Rather than, I mean, from the whole sake of it, I think the biggest shift is for mankind to understand how much we will be depending on digital technologies down the road. Because if you look at all the 4 domains that I present, if you merge those and look at the synergetic effects that they will have, it will be a tremendous change in our lives down the road, mostly in a positive way, I would say. Now, I'm being an optimistic person who loves technology, but still, we don't do stuff. I think one of the biggest changes may be, and this is where AI may be, I mean, we heard about I mean, I spoke with one person mentioning Skynet and the scare of AI. I think that the worst case with AI would be if we use that against each other. If that would be used by humans against other humans, AI can be a disaster. Otherwise, it'll definitely be something where the future lies in much being automated. We need to do less work. Much more will be run by systems and robots and so on. And we will resolve the issue with less population and more elderly people, which is more of a mushroom today, which is an issue which can, I think, only be resolved by technology. So that was a bit of a human future prediction. No, I don't know if that was exactly what you were looking for, but so the shift will be more of an acceptance of the technology that is about to change us. Because usually, my experience is that people go from initial instinct is, huh, there's something new.
Yeah.
I should be afraid of that. Then they go, and that's where innovators are more courageable, and courageous to get into stuff. And, before the laggards come in, it's going to take years. But so we have to depend on the innovators and the early adopters to ensure that this actually works through. And that is where the timeline actually represents that in a way.
Yeah.
Another question that arises is that will the emerging technologies make us more lazy or stupid rather than keeping up with the technology becoming smarter and keep up? And or do we need to change in the human brain or mindset or educational system or in consciousness according to to adapt to the new future?
No, I think the definition of smartness will change. Because if we can get connected, we use AI automatically through neuronic implants and so on. Being smart is not so much what you learned in school anymore. It's about how you apply the knowledge that's out there and how we can utilize AI and connectivity and so on and apply it in a direct manner. So definition of smart is not going to be brain related. It's going to be applicable related. That is my interpretation of it. So it was a very well qualified question. And I sort of diverted that a bit, but I think my response was actually highly relevant, though. At least I hope it was. And having said that, time is out. I'm very keen on respecting people's lives and times. So I'd like to thank everyone who joined in today, especially, of course, the panelists took their time. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Jonas. Thank you, David, for spending some time actually going through the book beforehand and preparing for this. And just so that you know, book is out if you're interested. It's on Kindle right now. It'll be also available as you can order it as a paperback, but on print on demand. Otherwise, if you have any questions or any considerations, don't hesitate to reach out. This is a passion of mine, so I'm always happy to interact. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy your day, and
Thank you.
let's look into emerging the future through technology.